All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Captain Cody Davis sitting down to talk fishing with you guys once again here. And I've got a pretty cool video for you guys today, if you're willing to just stay with me here. It's a video that I've definitely had a lot of requests on, over the last 4 months or so on making. A lot of you in the comment section, asking me to make it, but I've had a lot of direct messages on my social media accounts from guys just asking either asking questions on this particular technique, or just, like I said, requesting a video on it, a full video on it. So I'm finally going to sit down and do it. And what we're going to be talking about today is a lipless crankbait, or rattle trap style bait, a trap as we like to call it down here on Okeechobee. And I feel like there are a ton of misconceptions when it comes to this bait being used down here. And probably one of the biggest ones is, yeah, you can use it, and yeah, it gets you a lot of bites, but you're just not going to catch any big fish using it. And that is so far from the truth that I've grown to understand that it is not even funny. And a lot of people think you really can't throw them on Okeechobee due to the grass and things like that. But I'm here to tell you, it is a phenomenal fish catcher. You can use it in a lot of other scenarios than you would think, and it does definitely catch big fish. Uh, I was one of those people that just never threw it because I didn't think it worked very well or caught big ones, and just wanted to flip and throw a big easy and what have you when it came to Okeechobee. But when I met Breezy and we started fishing together, she really opened my eyes to a whole other presentation you can show to these fish that they really don't see all that often. Um, and it's worked wonders for me both in tournaments and guiding. I'll be the first one to say throwing a trap is probably one up there with one of my least favorite ways to catch them. There's no big hook sets, there's no top water explosion or anything like that, but that doesn't take away from how effective it is at catching big fish on the lake. And at the end of the day, when it comes to either guiding or a tournament situation, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to put the biggest fish in the boat that day that I can. And if that means throwing a lipless or a trap, I'm going to do it. And it's not because I don't think it doesn't catch big ones, because I'm here to tell you it does. And, I might sound like I'm praising my wife a lot or whatever when it comes to this, but if you look at her tournament history, she was catching a lot of fish and a lot of big fish and doing very well in BFLs, ABAs, and just club tournament events using this technique. And at the end of the day, she was one of the ones that was, she can honestly say there was no one else doing what she was doing a lot of the times. I mean, she'd come in with these big bags of fish and I'll oftentimes never see a boat. And that's, kind of unheard of anymore. And, I'm not closed minded. If someone knows what they're talking about with a fishery or just a specific technique, I listen. And that's what I really did when I started fishing with her. And I really, again, like I said, it's not my favorite, but I have grown to love throwing a rattle trap. I mean, I've grown to like it, and I've definitely grown to have a lot of confidence in it. The look on a lot of anglers' faces when they come down to fish with me on Okeechobee and they look down and they see, you've got a lipless tied on. I just left Chickamauga, or I just left wherever they're fishing with throwing a trap. You guys throw those down here? Um, it's crazy, and I don't know. I just feel like it gets overlooked. And I get a lot of questions on it. So we're gonna either way, we're gonna sit down and kind of talk about how we do it over here. And For the record, I did just grab one of Breezy's rods in the garage because she usually doesn't leave the house without two rattle trap or two traps tied on. And this is kind of her bread and butter. So it's literally, I copied what she did when it came to throwing a trap. So it's the same setup I use. So we're going to talk about it. Probably the biggest thing I can tell you guys that I've learned, the easiest, most effective way to throw it is, if you can throw it, throw it. And what I mean by that is, if you're you could be in the thick pads back in the day when you were in submerged grass, Kissimmee grass fields with boat lanes, out in the old needle grass fields with boat lanes, in and around cattail islands where maybe there's cuts going through. If there is enough open water to throw a trap in on this lake, throw it. That's what it comes down to. One, for the simple fact, I believe, is that those fish probably have not seen a vibrating lipless crankbait go by their face in a while. They've already seen the Senkos. They've seen a frog pop over their face. They've seen a speed worm. They've seen a Big Easy and a swim jig. It may be a chatterbait, but they haven't seen that presented to them a lot of times. And there, I can't tell you how many times I'd be flipping mats or throwing a whatever, and Breezy would throw over my shoulder down just the smallest cut that I would never throw a trap in and catch a 6-7 pounder. And I think a big portion of that is due to that you're showing them something that they don't often see and maybe have never seen in those areas. And that goes for anywhere. I mean, open water. If you can throw it, don't knock it out, or eliminate it from your arsenal. Now, here's the deal. Like I said, for whatever reason, a lot of people think you can catch fish on it, but you're not going to catch anything big. Big ones eat this thing. And maybe there's a couple of reasons. A, I think you're getting that reaction strike from them with a bait like this, so maybe they don't have time to think about it. And then I think it's, again, like I talked about, it's something that maybe they're not as used to seeing a lot. And there's a couple of things that she does that now I do a lot of times that will help you put those bigger fish in the boat. So for all extensive purposes, this is one that we throw a lot down here. There's a couple of different traps that we use. Excalibur was kind of the industry standard down here, and in all of Florida, whether it was the St. Johns River on shell bars, the Kissimmee chain, you name it. Excalibur was great. Now I believe Booyah bottom out. Some people say there's a difference. I don't see that big of a difference. I do use the Booyah product a lot. Arc makes a very good trap now. They do. Lucky Craft obviously made a good one. The original Bill Lewis one is great. But one that's a big favorite down here, and she has tied on, is this Spro Aruku shad. And I believe this one is 5/8 of an ounce. So it's just over a half ounce. So it's kind of great. It's in between that half ounce and that 3/4 ounce trap, which is nice. Which means if you are fishing a ledge in the rim canal or you're fishing, whatever it might be, it's heavy enough to do that. It's heavy enough to throw in the wind, but it's just close enough to that half ounce where if you are throwing it in shallow water, you can kind of keep it up off the bottom. The only problem I've ran into with this particular bait is the paint fit and finish is not good at all. You do lose a lot of paint on them, but that profile is great. It swims awesome. It's got a really good kick to it, and this thing catches a ton of fish. But whatever one you have confidence in will work. Now, when it comes to colors, I'm not a big color guy. You guys know that, but to keep it simple, you can get by with a silver or a chrome in black trap or a gold in black trap. Our water's very tannic down here, so I don't think they're getting that big of a look at the bait. Sometimes in cleaner water, if we're fishing it where you shouldn't be, like in a back marshy area, maybe there's a cut running between two cattail heads or something like that, where you have that very clear, dark tannic water, I have more confidence in a gold color like this. Whereas if I'm in that muddy, more silted looking water, oftentimes there's a large number of shad around because the shad kind of seem to get blown around with that muddy water. I have more confidence in a chrome, simply because I feel like it matches the shad a little better. And also, it just probably gives off a little bit more of a reflection, a little bit more shine, and they could see it easier. Those are the only two colors I throw: chrome or gold. I don't get crazy with color. Again, I'm trying to not give them that good of a look at this bait when I'm throwing it. Now, here's the other thing. A lot of these trap style baits now, they come in either a rattle style or they come in a one knocker. I'm a fan of throwing the rattling one. I don't do very good on a one knocker. I know a lot of people that exclusively only throw a one knocker. So whatever you have confidence in, I don't think it matters very much. But for me and Breezy also, it's that one with a lot of BBs in it, 3 or 4 BBs in it. Now, one of the things you're probably going to notice is what kind of hooks are on this bait. And when I first saw this on one of her rods, I said, "What the hell is that?" Now, if you buy this bait, this Spro Aruku shad particularly, and you take it out of the package, it actually has a small, like a number 6 treble hook on the back and a number 4 treble hook on the front. So it's got a smaller hook on the back than the front. And what she does is she actually upsized this to usually a 4, okay, on the front. And then what she does is she either puts a 1/0 or a number 2 treble hook on the back, okay? And what she does is she always makes sure that this is a round bend. And then this one will differ between an EWG style hook or a round bend. It doesn't matter. That big silver looking, I believe that's a Gamakatsu that they used to use on the back, looks stupid sitting here. But if you drag that thing through the water, it doesn't look out of place. It doesn't inhibit the action of this bait whatsoever. And it almost kind of sits back, and this is going to sound crazy, but it almost just almost gives it a tail fin. Um, I don't know if that really matters, but the biggest part of it is if they're coming up and just swatting at the bait. I can't tell you how many times we catch big fish on these baits and the hook is nowhere near their mouth. And I mean, it's not that you snagged them, they slam the crap out of it. I think it's because they just don't want it around them or they're bullying it. That big round bend hook is going to get them, whether it's in the top of the head, whether it's in the side of the face, and you'll get that fish. Whereas a lot of times with these EWG style hooks, which I am a big fan of, they're fantastic if they're swallowing the bait. If they're getting that bait all the way in their mouth and you hook them with an EWG style treble hook, more times than not, they're not coming off. But if they're swatting at it, because those points are just bent slightly inward, you're going to have at least of a chance at hooking that fish. And I feel like also, going back to those big smart fish, reeling this trap, I feel like sometimes they get right up behind the bait and may back away or not commit to the bait. Whereas that giant, goofy looking round bed hanging back there might just touch them in the mouth and they might just barely kind of mouth that back treble hook and you will get them. Like I said, it doesn't inhibit the action at all. It looks goofy sitting still, but if you drag it in the water, it kind of makes sense to you, and they catch big fish in it. Kelly, who I fish tournaments with to this day, who used to fish with my father-in-law and Breezy and stuff, he does the same thing, and he does outfish me with a rattle trap as well. I don't throw a rattle trap as much as a lot of other people do, but I do this from time to time, or I'll use an EWG style hook back there, but I will upsize it. I think it just, I don't know, it gets you a lot of fish. Now, is it going to get snagged? Yes, it does get snagged, but I really don't think if your rattle trap or your trap is getting snagged, you're getting snagged no matter what hooks you're putting on there. You're throwing it into really thick stuff, and then maybe sometimes in that particular area, maybe you shouldn't exert yourself trying to make this technique work. But it's also going to snag the fish much better. And the other good thing is, again, going back to kind of like my theory on throwing that big super spook as well, when you're throwing this in places that by the book you really wouldn't throw this, a lot of times it's around heavy vegetation, whether it's the Kissimmee grass or things like we talked about. And by the book, when you hook a fish on a treble hook style bait, like a square bill crankbait or what have you, it's light line and a light rod and be easy with them not to pull those hooks. A lot of these scenarios, you're unable to do that. You got to kind of put the heat to these fish to keep them out of going where they want to go. So that really oversized treble hook on the back, you get a good bite. You get a good grip on that fish's wherever it is. It's got a lot of bite to it, and you could more or less horse that fish to come wherever you need him or her to come to get him in the boat. So don't overlook that. That's kind of a little sneaky deal there, and it works. As far as the rod and reel, what she does, and I kind of stick to one rod. I like that rod to bend, but she'll throw hers on a 7 foot to a 7.3, a medium heavy if we're throwing it in and around boat lanes and around grass where you, like I said, you need to move that fish. Or if she's fishing in deeper water and things, obviously just a standard 7 foot to a 7'4", 7'6" even medium action rod will do just fine. Something with bend keeps those hooks in there. Something that has a little bit of a backbone that you can pull that fish to you if need be. But really, whatever works for you. Um, the line. This is where it's a little bit different. Um, so fluorocarbon is all the rage now, and it is great. It's sensitive and what have you, but what it does do is it sinks. Monofilament floats, and at least it floats better than fluorocarbon does. So I am a big fan of this as well. I still do this too, but she swears by it as well. Is throwing this bait on 20-pound trilene big game monofilament. Okay, we're not typically fishing in 30 feet, 25 feet of water with this bait, trying to scrape shell on the bottom and feel when you're hitting that bar hard bottom. 6 feet of water is extremely deep for us here. So you're not really looking for all that sensitivity. You don't need it. So the 20-pound mono, what it does is it helps float that bait just a little bit more so you can run that trap over whether it's dead or dying cattails like we're fishing now, or in the grass, and keep it off the bottom from either A, getting snagged, or B, just getting that sludge on your treble hooks. I'm telling you from firsthand experience, it may not be much of a difference, but it is enough of a difference where if you and a partner are fishing on the front of the boat, one of you's throwing fluorocarbon and the other one's throwing mono, usually the one with the mono is going to fish more effectively and efficiently because they're not going to be scraping up the bottom, getting any gunk or debris on their treble hooks. Keep that in mind. Also, I feel like if you're throwing it on a little bit of a stiffer rod, that stretch to that mono almost offsets it. So you can put a little bit more heat on the fish because you have a little bit more stretch. Whereas if you're throwing it with fluorocarbon with the low stretch, you want to go to a little bit of a more limber rod. And then sometimes you just can't pull them out of the stuff as often. But a 6, anything that starts, a lot of people throw it on a 7-1. You can. But a 6'4" to a 6'8" to 1 reel is preferred for me when throwing a lipless like this. Some people throw it on a 7. Some people throw it on a 5. You pick what works for you. But kind of the little tint I'll give you, if the bottom is hard enough to where you could fish it closer to the bottom and not pick up any debris, you're better off. I feel like you get more bites and you get your bigger bites closer to the bottom. But obviously, if you're in an area that has a lot of debris on the bottom and you can't, then you just kind of a moderate retrieve is just a consistent, constant retrieve is the deal. Same thing with a swim jig. Going back to that, it blows people's minds how they'll come down here from other states, and you will get more bites here throwing a swim jig out and just steadily reeling it in as opposed to twitching it and making it jump all over the place like other places. Our fish here like that slow, consistent, just moderate retrieve. So that's the deal. But I think that's about it. I don't really have any other tips for you, but that's kind of the deal. We're fishing dirtier water, dingier water, tannic water, where our fish don't get as good of looks at baits as they do in Lake of the Ozarks when you can count pennies on the bottom of 30 feet of water. So sometimes details that matter other places just don't matter at all down here. So don't be afraid to throw a lipless. Definitely give it a shot. You will get snagged. I mean, there's no secret anymore, but with all the vibrating jig craze that's going around right now, especially down here on Okeechobee, I feel like fish are tired of seeing it, and a lot of people are mixing a bait like this into the mix and out fishing guys that are throwing vibrating jigs and just kind of keeping it secret and telling everyone they're throwing a vibrating jig. But this bait does catch giants. I'm looking at a 976 or whatever it was on the wall that she caught in the Rollins Championship a couple years ago that ate literally this bait sitting here in my hands, and countless other big ones. But as we get, throw it anywhere you can throw it, give it a shot. And then obviously, in the summer months is where this bait shines on the outside edge for schooling fish, main lake grass points, ditches, canals, holes in the rim canal. Don't be afraid to go out and try to learn this bait and give it a shot. It definitely gets bit. So that's about it. I appreciate you guys watching. Might shoot another one here before too long. a little tip video for you guys. If you guys have any requests on little insight tips like this of what I like to use, whether it's flipping, frogging, swim jig, whatever it is, leave it in the comments and I'll try do my best to try and get to it. So I guess I'll catch you guys on the next one, and I appreciate you guys watching. Later.